Memphis is the home of the blues, rock and roll, and Earl Farrell.
From the Collierville Square to the mighty Mississippi, the Earl Farrell for Memphis show is all about good things that happen across the Bluff City and the people who make Memphis cool.
The Earl Farrell for Memphis show is made possible by our title sponsor, Southern Security Federal Credit Union, and by Kathy Thurman Edwards, State Farm Insurance.
Plus, Diane Kimbrough, Lady Di, your insurance PI. Also by Dive Shop and Dive Ventures nationwide. Jim Karras Chevrolet with George Gully. Napa Cafe Memphis and Glenda Hastings. Phoenix Unequaled Home Entertainment. For Memphis Magazine. The Live at the Garden Concert Series. And the Orpheum Theater Group Memphis. Thank you to all the sponsors for making this possible.
And now, coming to you from Lansky Brothers, Clothier to the King, inside the world-famous Peabody Hotel, with the heart of a cowboy and Memphis in his soul. Ladies and gentlemen, here's your host, Earl Farrell.
And thank you very much, and welcome in on this lovely day in the Mid-South. We've got a big show for you today. Memphians who have been in love with Memphis for a long time and really show that love. We've got Felicia Suzanne and her husband Clay, and they just opened up their wonderful restaurant. They've been open, 15 days Friday?
15 days Saturday.
Saturday.
Yes, 15 days.
But we've been waiting 2 years for you to come back.
Waiting a little bit, yes.
How has it been?
You know, we're excited to be open. We're excited to be on South Main, which is great. From our old location, we were sort of Central Main, to be down there. We live down there, so it's our neighborhood, and just to be able to walk to work is refreshing.
Now, this is in the old Spendini location?
It is. We're right at 383 South Main,
and
old Spendini.
And one of the things that everybody always loved about it is it had a patio outside and a parking lot.
It does. Yes, the parking lot is huge. We have parking, which is great.
Yes.
For everyone out east to come on down, and we out for valet.
So you know where your car is when you get there, and you know where it is when you're ready to leave.
Exactly.
So that's a huge thing. Clay, your husband, this is Rob over here. No relation whatsoever. Actually went to work for you at the original location. That's where y'all met?
Well, no, Clay and I are from the same hometown.
Oh, okay.
So his brother and I went to school together, and he went to school with my brothers, and so we're both from Jonesboro, small town, and kind of both went our own path. And then in 2015, our paths crossed ran into each other one night at BB King's, and
there you go.
Love at first sight.
The rest is history.
The rest is history, yes. And so Clay came during COVID. Clay really helped out with us at the restaurant on the weekends and stuff, and on his off time. And so when we decided to shut down the old location, I was going to kind of take a little break and just kind of figure out, what was the next step for Felicia Suzanne's 2.0, and the Spendini location came up. And it's a large space. And I wanted to I needed other partners, investors in this. I mean, the first location, it was just me. So it was a lot. It's
never good to be just you,
No, it was never.
Let's spread the joy.
Exactly. Let's spread and that's what we're doing. I'm spreading the joy with my husband, Clay. So, as I say, I brought Clay over to the dark side, and he was working for his uncle they had McCrae Drilling, which was environmental and water testing. And so when the restaurant, we found the space and decided to start construction, he I guess had a moment of weakness and said, you know what, I will join you in that. And so
and
here we are. So, which is great, because Clay's running the front of the house, and I'm able to be back in the kitchen cooking, which is, where I started 23 years ago, and just really get back to the dishes and let him run the front.
I do have to say, we had the opportunity to have eat at the chef's table one time, and your kitchen is the quietest kitchen. I used to do a show called My Favorite Restaurant, and we were in hundreds of kitchens, and your kitchen is nothing like any other kitchen I've ever been in. There's no yelling. It's very quiet, very orderly, and no panic.
No panic, yeah. I'm sure there are days.
Well, but it was like this. I need it now.
Yes.
As opposed to, I gotta have it.
I'm a little bit more direct than the yelling, but we brought back the kitchen table. Actually, it got a gussied up table and a light fixture. And
wow.
Yeah, it got real fancy in the kitchen these days.
Well, kitchens, I know the Commander's Palace has a chef's table. A lot of restaurants do that, but so many restaurants have no room for, you did have a large kitchen at the original location.
Well, and this one's kind of follows the same. We were able to use, like I've got my old expo table that we brought over. I mean, she's been with me for 23 years, and she was going to be right there.
Got to be there again.
Yeah, had to be there again. And so when you walk in the kitchen, the layout is very similar. And the expo table is kind of the center of the table. And then we carved out this little area off to the left and put the kitchen table. So actually, it works really well. The flow works great.
When you first started in the business, I mean, I know you went to New Orleans, worked for Emerald for about 8 years, but how did you get from Jonesboro to New Orleans? Because that's going big time. Yeah?
Well, Jonesboro. So, growing up, I mean, both of us, this is where we ate, shopped. I can remember my parents coming over and going to Justine's and Four Flames and coming to the Peabody for brunch and stuff like that. And so I went to Arkansas State for 2 years and was in their business program and really wanted to focus on restaurant management. And sort of a funny story is I somehow applied to the University of Tennessee without my parents knowing, got accepted, and went for a weekend to look at it to find a place to live.
And you hadn't told your parents?
No. Well, I told them I was going. Yeah, I mean, not really. Not so much. I mean, a 20-year-old.
Yes.
Had big dreams. And I went to Knoxville. And Knoxville was nothing back then what it is today. And I didn't like it. I just did not like Knoxville. I didn't feel comfortable. And I think it was too far from my mom. And so my mom was like, well, you've transferred yourself out of the state of Arkansas and transferred yourself to the state of Tennessee. And you can't seem to get more than an hour from me, so you might want to look into schools in Memphis. And so Memphis had just started a restaurant program at the University of Memphis. Nothing like it is today with the Wilson Center, but so I enrolled there and finished at Memphis. And during that time, applied to Johnson & Wales in Charleston, South Carolina. So after graduating Memphis, I moved to Charleston, and I already had a degree. So I had a degree in business, so the only thing I really needed to class-wise was to take the labs, the cooking part, and did that. And then I kind of segued to New Orleans because I needed to graduate. I had to do an internship. And to graduate, most of the internships in Charleston or in the Charleston area were at golf clubs.
Really?
And I did not want to
be at a country club?
I did not want to be on a Sunday brunch making hollandaise for 500 people. So, and I remember as a child, my parents going to New Orleans a lot and loved that. And so that was just an easy sort of, it was easy. It was such a food town, and still being in the South and still being close enough to Arkansas. And so that's kind of where I kind of came back down into Louisiana and stayed there. I was only going to stay a year just to do an internship, and then I always wanted to go back to Jonesboro and open a restaurant. But Jonesboro is still a dry county.
Wow.
And you need a little booze to help pay with that rent. So
well, it helps to pay the bills.
It does. And so that's why I picked downtown Memphis, because I was literally an hour door to door to my mom. And so, and downtown is just it feels a lot like Jonesboro. It's a small town. Everybody knows each other. You can walk to and from work. And so that's what we especially love on the South End.
Well, I think everybody lives down. When I lived down here 39 years ago at the tower, I got up every morning, ran up to the top to where the Rivermont Holiday Inn is, and come back down through Beale Street, Court Square. And, it is a small community. It's just like living on a little Main Street town.
Yeah.
And all the people that don't come downtown now have no idea of what they've missed over the last few years. It has absolutely evolved into this other city. All the apartment buildings, the hotels. I mean, it's very cool down here.
It is very cool. It's a cool place. We've been on the South End for 23 years. And so we just live at the lofts right there at South Bluffs. And, what was great yesterday is that we just walked down to Riverbeach, had the best Sunday, and then walked back up the stairs and, came home after the fireworks.
I remember I lived at the Tower Apartments. We'd have like tailgate at my apartment, then walk across the street to Mud Island Amphitheater and watch a concert with the city in the background, which is, they got to make that happen. That's
They will.
I think they will, because that is just too cool. There's not a better concert venue in the country than being at Mud Island Amphitheater looking at the city of Memphis at night behind you.
Oh, it's great.
Through the stage.
Yeah, and I can remember, when I was in high school, we'd come over and go to concerts. So, great place.
Working for Emerald, what was that like? Because you actually got involved with the shows and that crazy world, because I kept watching him and they kept starting new shows and new lines of cutlery, new lines of flatware, a printer, George Foreman hamburger cooker.
Yeah, that was sort of after me. I was
still pure.
Yes, I was pure cookbook and TV shows, and just kind of landed into that position. A friend of mine at the restaurant, she was her mentor had passed away in Kearney, and the family offered her the restaurant, John's Restaurant, for $1.
Wow.
So she
should have ran.
Exactly. So she resigned, and I fell into her position, and then it just kind of took off from there. And so it was kind of a learning as you go, sort of writing and producing, and I enjoyed it. It was a great experience. I mean, I loved everything I learned how to do, and we traveled all over the country. I met amazing people and dining at different restaurants and chefs, and I was in my 20s. I mean, it was a great experience for the age that I was at.
Hey, this restaurant business is great. I love this.
Oh, yeah. It was wonderful. I mean, we were the most sought after reservations. We were going right on in. And it was great, but his notoriety was growing and growing. And again, like what you said, all this other product was coming in, this other branding. And it was just kind of took my turn of what I originally wanted to do, which was to always open a small little mom and pop restaurant. And so I decided it was just, if I could have moved my mom and my family to New Orleans, I would have. But they kind of were.
They ain't going nowhere.
They're not going nowhere. She's staying in Jonesboro. And so I decided to get closer to home.
And you've always come across, you're very, very friendly, very amiable, but I perceive the strength in you. And I love strong women. And I know Clay knows that.
I can attest to that, yes.
Yeah. But, I mean, men who aren't threatened by that, those are the people you love the most, because it's about, hey, we're just going to get this thing done. And you handle that, I'll handle this. And if anybody gives you crap, come get me.
Yeah, and that's kind
on either side.
Yeah, that's kind of where what has been nice is because, for 20 years, it was just me. So it started with me and ended with me. There was just no one else to take on that load. And when we decided that we were going to leave Brinkley and look for another space, my one thing is that I wasn't going to do it unless Clay was going to be part of that process. And he's so good he's a lot nicer than I am.
Well,
and I was like, I need a little eye candy at the front door too. And he's just naturally good with employees and people feel comfortable with him. And so it was an obvious choice. And during this 2 years that we've been closed, when we left Brinkley, we thought it'd be 6 to 8 months, literally. I mean, we just didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal because Spendini was kind of already there and already functioning. Well, when we got into that building, which is the old Fred P. Gaddis building, was built in 1926.
You found
We found all of the things that...
you rolled the log over and
exactly.
You go, wow.
Wow. So we ripped out all the plumbing, all the electrical, the roofing, everything needed to be... We gutted it completely. And so it just took a little bit. And with it being on the historic... National Historic, we had
a lot of rules.
Yeah. And there were tax credits, which the one good thing about that is the city, there were tax credits for us to get, to put this love for exterior. The DMC was great with us because, again, there was a lot of love that needed to be brought into the building. And downtown really did not, I had no interest going out east. Nothing against Midtown and out east, but I am a downtowner. And so... Luckily, the parties that there were a lot of downtowners that, kind of rallied behind us, and we got these tax credits and these grants and stuff so that we could really give the building what it needed. And so we took the time. We got in there, we saw a couple of concerns, we got those fixed. So, yes, it was a long 2 years, but it was a well worth 2 years. I mean, it's for the next 20 years.
Yeah. And if you don't take care of all those problems, they do come back.
Yes, they did.
And you were the Brinkley had been restored, but it was still an old building.
Still an old building. Still needed. Now we don't have anyone else. It's just us.
Yeah.
So the space, it was Bay A and Bay B. And so Spendini it was all of Bay B and half of Bay A because each side's about 3,000 square feet. So the total space is around 6,000 square feet. And so there's a little loading dock in the back that they had their walk-in cooler. So we moved that indoors. They had a back private room. I don't know if you remember. You went up the stairs towards the back. And
I never got to the back.
You never got to the back. Well, there's a little private room for about 28 guests.
Yeah.
Well, they had boarded up all the windows. So there was no natural light coming in. So we took off, unboarded the windows, put in some new windows, and we turned that loading dock into a
dining room.
Well, into a private courtyard in the back.
Wow. Oh, wow.
So there's a little space in the back that we kind of labeled BKS, Best Kept Secret, and it's for the locals. It's a place for the locals to go to.
Only locals will know about it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, because if you're from out of town,
you wouldn't know.
You don't know.
We do have that little side porch that's in the parking lot. So
yeah.
We got a new awning, new furniture. We put some privacy awnings around the side, so it sort of made it a little bit more intimate up there. New lighting, heaters, fans, and that sort of dining is going to be more of a kind of a no reservations, and it's just beverages and bites. So we'll have, in the next several weeks, we're rolling out a bite menu, which is enough for small plates for people to share.
Yeah. No, a lot of people, we were in San Francisco, we were halfway up the hill, and I said, I got to get something to eat. We got some black bean soup. A lot of times you just want something to kind of snack on.
Exactly.
And you're touring downtown or you're doing something, so let's run in there and grab a bite.
Well, and after the Orpheum or on your way to the Grizzly game or AutoZone Park, for whatever reason during COVID, everyone decided at 9 o'clock they were going to shut down, which I understood. Yeah. But COVID's over and nobody reopened.
No. In fact, we come down to the Orpheum, and we're headed home at like 11 o'clock. There is nothing open between here and Collierville. Nothing.
Well, we have changed that.
Good.
So we are open 4 to 10. The bar opens at 4 with beverages and bites, and then the dining room opens at 5. And the dining room will run from 5 to 10. You can walk in at 5 till 10.
And still get served.
And still get served.
Good.
And then at 10 o'clock, we roll out our bite menu again. And we're also offering that all day. Eventually, we will get to, everyone's been asking about Friday lunch because we're pretty popular with that. And so we'll be doing eventually all-day dining on Friday and Saturdays.
Did I read something about you're going to also take over the space next door?
We are.
So we're breaking this here, right?
Yes, you are. So my nickname in New Orleans was Flows. And so several years ago, I started when the restaurant opened, I was canning tomato jam, chow chow, pickles, and jalapenos. And I would store them in quart containers behind the bar. And so people would be sitting at the bar, they're like, what's that? What's that? They'll see one of the cooks come by to grab that quart down to bring it to the kitchen. And so it kind of got on that people were like, well, can we buy that? Well, I was like, a quart of tomato jam is going to last you a really long time. So we went and branded it. We've got a cute little brand for Flows and some smaller jars and started processing chow chow and tomato jam and jalapenos.
I think it's great.
And so we'll have that element at Flows also. But so when the news broke that we were going to open this store, everybody thought that maybe it was just like all of my jams and jellies. I was like, well, it's about 2,200 square feet. That's a lot of jam and jelly. That has a really long shelf life. So we decided what we're going to do is more of an all-day grab and go. So during COVID, as soon as COVID hit, we immediately went into takeout and did really well with it. We sort of focused on single diners and empty nesters. So our meals were single and for two.
Which is great because there's so many couples empty nesters,
Yeah,
two people, which is not easy to do.
No, and so we did really well with that. And so this is kind of what Flows is going to be. When you walk in, there's a row of refrigerators and freezers, and then on the opposite end, there's a row of dry storage. So we're going to carry other people's local products,
Good.
honey and jams and jellies. and
Sort of like the
pickles.
farmer's market, but
Exactly.
inside.
Yeah, but inside.
I think it's a great idea.
And we'll have some seating, and then we're putting a full kitchen back there. And so you can get gumbo or short rib grilled cheese, or you can get the oysters of love and walk down Main Street, especially like during trolley night, will be great. But then in the coolers will be the hippie salad or the salmon deviled eggs or the chicken enchiladas. And we're going to kind of run the sort of the private event catering out of Flo's also. And, right now Clay and I are together in the restaurant, but as we build our staff and promote from within, Clay will sort of have time go over and run Flo's.
In your spare time.
In your
In my spare time, sure. That's right. That's right.
Having been through the whole New Orleans thing with Emerald, and so many people get in the restaurant business and think, I'd like to have 15 of these restaurants. Did you learn from that experience that one restaurant is really quite sufficient if you do things right?
Exactly, yeah. I don't, well, so the funny thing is that it's been 23 years since I've had to open a restaurant. And it's going great, but opening of any business is a nightmare for the first 90 days. I mean, we have a whole new staff. There's one original staff member with me, Cedric, who is my kitchen manager, who's been with me 20 years, and everyone else is new. And so it's just kind of learning the flow of all the employees with each other and how to communicate and how everyone's working and the different personalities under this one umbrella. So, my hat's off to Andy and Michael of the worlds that can, continue to open different restaurants. We're good. We're good with it. We're going to have two concepts under one roof.
Have them next to each other.
Yeah, they're going to be next door.
No travel time.
No travel time. And with Flo's, it's all counter service. So there will be seats inside, but there's no service. We're using a higher-end disposable. Again, things that you can take home, reheat at home. We're also going to be there's a lot of people that have reached out to us for like meal prep. On Sundays, they want to pick up their food for the week. And so we're really sort of targeting that to the downtown clientele because I feel like out east, you have those options. But downtown, we just don't have a lot of those options. So we're looking to fill that in. With the community and the neighborhoods downtown. Well,
and I often describe to people that have never been in the business of a restaurant during full service is really like a ballet. And everybody learns to move. You know how that person moves. You do not go on their right side because they will run over you. But It is. Everybody knows how they move, and that will all develop, and people will learn how this new place is. But going from all longtime employees to just one that knows how you operate, of course, Clay. But.
Yeah, Clay, which is great to have him at the front.
Yeah.
So as soon as you walk in the door, you're greeted with Clay. And just to take that responsibility off of my shoulders for him to really, and he's, embracing it and running with it. And, people out there like, well, y'all are you live together, you're married, you work together. I was like, yeah, but I couldn't pick one person in the entire world that I would trust the past 20 years with than him. He knows exactly the way, I operate and how I want the food and stuff to be.
Absolutely.
But he's coming into his own style of service and communication with the team. He's really running that front of the house staff. They go to him for all of that. And so...
And don't you find that every restaurant takes on its own life after a little bit, that it's going to be totally different from Felicia Suzanne's one?
Oh, yeah.
And this one, because it's a different place, different time, different people.
And just being the neighborhood, being right there on South Main versus where we were on Central Main. We were on a pedestrian mall for 20 years.
Yep.
The fact that you can pull right up
in a car.
I see cars going back and forth.
Yeah.
And we really opened up the light coming in is great. And at the old location, we kind of became the rehearsal dinner spot.
Yeah.
We kind of became the special occasion, which was lovely. But you need more than, people would always apologize, like, oh, we just come to see you for our anniversary. I was like, no. I need you to come several times a week. But we're really getting the embracing of the neighborhood where we've got our neighbors that are requesting, seats at the bar. So one different thing from Felicia Suzanne's 1.0 and 2.0 is that we take reservations at the bar for diners.
Well, what you'll find, it'll be like church. That's my bar stool. It was that way at Bombay Bicycle. You walk in, you can't sit there. He's going to be here in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And
we got little reserve signs, and I'll tell you, South Main has really embraced that.
Yeah.
The couples that are living,
Yes, we have our regulars.
Yeah.
Well,
already starting.
And they're part of the town. We live here.
Yeah.
You're just visiting for a little bit.
Exactly. Well, and when the side porch opens, then you can go out and get a drink and sit and just have bites, more cocktail lounge like. But the bar, we serve full dinner menu at the bar. And it's really, people are really enjoying that experience. And we wanted to make it where, again, it's inviting to all.
Yeah.
It's just, and we've got, at the old space, it was one big room. And so now we've got these sort of smaller, more intimate rooms. Our main dining room at the old place sat, 75, 80 people. The new spot, the new main dining room is 44 guests. It's just lovely.
And your bar, you got a long bar as opposed to the round bar you had before.
We can seat 10 people at the bar. Yeah. And then we've got these beautiful red banquettes. So we brought over our red was our signature color at the old spot. And so our decorator, Natalie Lieberman with Collect and Curate, really took Clay and I's vision and the space and what we had at the old place and really kind of meshed into this Felicia Suzanne's on South Main. It's beautiful. And we've got, besides the kitchen table, we've got a little, on Bay A side of the other side of the space has a skylight in the middle of the dining room.
That's cool.
So we made a little intimate private room for 8. And then we've got a private dining room for 28. And then that back BKS lounge.
The speakeasy.
Area, the speakeasy. We'll seat about 25, 26 guests.
So right now you can make a reservation for the dining room, right?
Yes.
And you're closed today.
We're closed Sunday, Monday.
And open again on Tuesday.
Yes.
And you're taking reservations at the bar and at the right now.
So, right now, yeah. So you can call and then go through our website, or we're on Resi. And we're starting small. The only spaces that are really open right now are the main dining room and the bar. And then in the weeks to come, we're going to be here for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
We don't need to open everything at once and freak everybody out. So we're just starting small and slowly just adding as we feel like the team's ready to do that.
And we'll have you back. We're going to get a chance to go in and try it.
We'd love that.
And get things to settle down a little bit because it will take on a life of its own. So it'll be interesting in a few months what it's like after the opening, because it's always crazy at the opening.
Yeah, so talk to us after July.
Yeah.
We're just trying to get to July.
I understand. Felicia, thank you so much for coming. And Clay, thank you. And I don't have to wish you luck. You're already so well known here and loved. It's just moving down the street and getting going again. So.
We're excited. We're excited to be back.
Well, everybody's excited to have you back.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks for having us.
We appreciate it.
You're sure welcome.
Thank you for the love.
Jack Sammons up next.
One of my favorite guys.
Oh, talk about somebody can tell a story. This guy, he should be on stage, and he often is. But thank you all very much. We're going to take a break here from some of our sponsors, and then we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Dawn Grader, President and CEO of Southern Security Federal Credit Union. We're the proud title sponsor of the Earl Farrell for Memphis show. Coming to you live from Lansky's in the world-famous Peabody Hotel and celebrating all of the great things about our great city, Memphis, Tennessee.
Hi, I'm Glenda Hastings, owner of Napa Cafe, and I'm so proud to be part of the Earl Farrell for Memphis show, streaming live from Lansky's from the Peabody. We will be showcasing not only Napa Cafe, but some great restaurants around town. We look forward to seeing you.
Hi, everyone. It's Diane Kimbrough, Lady Di, your insurance PI. And I'm here to tell you about the new podcast that Earl Farrell from Memphis is doing. And we're doing it downtown live from the Peabody, which is behind me and next to the Rendezvous. And we're going to be talking all things Memphis, but we're also going to be talking about health insurance because that applies to everyone. And I can help you in every area. So I look forward for you listening to us and learning more about what we can do for you in Memphis and how I can help you with your health.
Hi, I'm George Gully. Want to welcome Earl back to the podcast. We're here at Jim Carrey Chevrolet, Nissan, Subaru, Buick, and GMC, and I'm going to save you some money. Come down and see me today.
Hi, I'm Kathy Thurman Edwards, State Farm, and I'm so excited to be one of the sponsors for the Earl Farrell from Memphis show, broadcasting live from Lansky's at the Peabody. And I'll tell you all about what we've got going on at our office. Gift cards for quotes. No purchase necessary. I'm better looking than a lizard.
Hi, this is Randy Wright from the Dive Shop and Dive Ventures in Memphis. We've been in Memphis over 64 years teaching people to dive, snorkel, and swim. We'd love to have you come join us and have some fun. We're also a part of the Dive Ventures Group with 18 locations across the country, stretched from Phoenix to Vienna, Virginia. Please give us a call. We'll be able to take care of you at 999 South Yates in Memphis, or call us at 901-763-DIVE.
Hi, I'm Brett Batterson, President and CEO of the Orpheum Theater Group in downtown Memphis. We are so pleased with our partnership with the Earl Farrell Show and very happy that he is broadcasting live from Lansky's at the historic Peabody Hotel. We're all here to make Memphis better.
Hi, my name is Jameson Todd, and I'm the director of Live at the Garden and the Radiance Amphitheater. And we're so excited for our 25th year of Live at the Garden here at the Memphis Botanic Garden. We've got a great lineup for you this season, so come on out.
Hi, I'm Olivia Wall, Director of Marketing and Communications for Memphis Botanic Garden and Live at the Garden. We've had Earl Farrell right along the way for the past 25 years, and we can't wait to talk more about the season this summer on the Earl Farrell for Memphis show.
So come out to Live at the Garden. Our first show is on June 21st.
Hi, my name is Scott Fueling. I'm president of Phoenix Communications here in Memphis. I'm really proud to support Earl Farrell's show, as is everybody else on the team. We love Memphis, and we love doing things to promote Memphis, and we can't wait for this to get started.
And welcome back. With me now is my good friend and famous Memphian, and you are a very famous Memphian, Jack Sammons. I looked up just so I didn't want to leave anything out, and this is what it says when you just look up Jack Sammons, and it has dash Memphis, so that's you.
Easy now.
Lifetime Memphian Jack Sammons has always been profoundly active in multiple businesses and civic affairs. He was elected 4 times to the Memphis City Council, serving as chairman. Later, he was appointed by Mayors Lowry and Wharton to serve as the CAO of the city of Memphis. But he's owned companies, Ampro Industries, a leading global manufacturer of ethnic hair care production for 20 years. He's got Jack Sammons is the sole general partner of Sammons Company LP. And it goes on and on.
They don't want to hear that stuff.
So I put it all down on a legal pad, and then I wrote down my accomplishments, and it said, I showed up.
Well, 90% of life is just showing up. So you've done great.
That's a start. But one of our best friends, Nick Burgess, and whenever you come downtown, you can't help but think about Nick.
We're right here at the corner of Nick Burgess and Jack Sammons Boulevard, across the street.
Absolutely. In fact, I think that's where I met you. Was at the bar at the Rendezvous, and Nick introduced us, and he said,
"Shocking."
He said, "Jack's on the city council. Y'all probably see a lot of each other," and which it was so entertaining back then because you were there, and you had Jack. Tom
Marshall.
Tom Marshall. Pat Halloran was on the city council for a while. You had Jeff
Pat
Sanford,
who just passed away a few months ago.
Absolutely. In fact, I actually saved her life in Nashville. We were there covering the legislature. We were eating in the legislative dining room. And she's getting really wobbly and said, something's going on. We put her in the Channel 3 news car and took her to Vanderbilt Hospital. She was having a stroke.
No,
yeah.
Really?
So,
wow.
That was my one contribution to.
Yeah, she was a colorful character, the bright red hair on the city council.
Yeah, there's always some great stories about Pat. But your whole history here has been interesting. Your family had Pappy's.
My granddad. You've been in the restaurant business, Earl, and I grew up as a kid. We had a lot of kids in our family, and every one of them had to work in the restaurant. Beginning when you were like in the first grade, you'd fill water glasses and put butter on the plates and that kind of thing.
There was no lollygagging around.
No lollygagging around with Pappy. And in 1963, I recall vividly when President Kennedy was killed, that my grandfather wouldn't let me work. He made me stay home and watch Walter Cronkite and all that, the coverage for the entire weekend. I was further angry at Lee Harvey Oswald for beating me out of $3 that I would have made for working 2 nights at the Lobster Shack. Yeah. I've been in Memphis my whole life except when I went away to college at University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. And I've just always been when I was living in Tuscaloosa, I had a banner on my wall at the college fraternity house that said, "Believe in Memphis." And it had the Chamber of Commerce had a campaign. They had a picture of the skyline, the river, and this giant, bold print, "Believe in Memphis." And I think that slogan probably is more needed today than ever.
Well, that's one reason I want to have you on. That's one reason we're doing this show is it's about Memphis. And It's about the people that make Memphis great, the business owners, the people that really are out there doing something and not just complaining about things.
What a great environment for you to have this show.
It's the best wardrobe I've ever had.
Well, I tell you what, but you got in an hour you need to take it off.
I got to give it back.
Got to give it back. That's
there are some I've got
Cinderella.
my
That's a great looking coat you got on today.
I tried to do usually a thing. Hal, I think somebody sweated on this jacket. Can I get a discount?
That's right. It's got a defect.
Ain't gonna work.
Yep.
But there are so many great things that are happening. People who have not been to downtown Memphis in 3 or 4 years would not recognize all the activity going on there. The hotels that have been built, the apartment buildings, the condominiums.
The number of nice condos and apartments down here is breathtaking.
Yeah.
It's beyond comprehension. But listen, Memphis, I look at it, Earl, as that we're a 12-round fighter. We get knocked down, we get back up.
And have many times.
Yes, sir. I mean, the yellow fever went through this town
twice.
Yeah, twice. And just, totally emasculated.
Actually, Memphis was larger than Atlanta before the yellow fever epidemic.
That's right. But we got back, on our feet, put it back together, and there have been some other things when, the Rust Belt of America, we lost some of our major industrial employers like International Harvester and Firestone.
Yeah.
But right behind that, here comes FedEx. So, a lot of, I'm encouraged, and I know that Memphis is a caring city and community. If you read these articles about Tom Lee in the last few days, somewhat emblematic of what really Memphis is about. There's some people that made a living trying to keep us divided. But they get out of the way. I think this town comes together. And
it kind of does anyway. All my friends are still there.
Sure.
I can go anywhere in the community. I know you can go anywhere in the community. And you know everybody, and they know you. And they know we care about the town.
Absolutely. And, I didn't even play golf when I became the chairman of the FedEx St. Jude Championship. My brother said Scotty said I was eminently unqualified to run the FedEx St. Jude, and we've been able to really grow that tournament over the years, and it's one of the great handshakes of Memphis to the world.
In fact, you tell a story. I want you to tell it about when you're out in L.A. for a fundraising auction, I think, for St. Jude.
Right.
And the people weren't really getting involved, and you get up on the mic and start telling them why they need to get involved. Tell us how
St. Jude's got this fabulous auctioneer, this very attractive blonde-headed lady named Letitia. And she can sell a bottle of Coca-Cola for $90. She's just talented. But she's told me before that the variance of success you'll have at an auction is functionally dependent upon the amount of alcohol they've consumed.
Yes.
Well, the first item they sold that night was 4 round-trip first-class tickets to Europe, 7 nights in a castle in Bordeaux, with visits to these first-growth wineries for 6 days, an unbelievable package, and it only drew $7,000. Okay, one ticket was worth more than that, much less all the wine you get to drink and stay in there for free. So she was not real happy about that. Then they had a deal where there's a part of old Italian royalty, a prince from Italy was going to knight you. If you bought this auction item, you'd be knighted, and you'd have a dinner at the Roman Colosseum in a specific space in the Colosseum. The first time dinner had been served there in 2,000 years. Okay, I mean, just an extraordinary deal. And it went for $19,000 is all it brought. So we have now 70 players, whereas in the old days we had 156. Now that we're part of the FedEx Cup playoffs, we've got the top 70 golfers in the world. But that's more than half the number of Pro-Am spots we normally had. So there weren't any of those to donate to this auction. But we do have a Celebrity Am on Thursday out at Spring Creek. People say, Celebrity Am, what does that mean? So you ever heard of Peyton Manning or Jerry Seinfeld? Oh, yeah. Are they playing? No, but they're celebrities. Okay? So it's not exactly, it's not the draw that the Pro-Am. It's a lot of fun. It's a great event. We raised a lot of money for that one. But it would sell at maybe 10% of what the Pro-Am did. So Letitia comes around. She's got the microphone. She walks up to me when it's time to sell the Celebrity Am team. And we retail that for like $8,000. So she hands me the microphone and she goes, "This one's yours, big boy." Oh, Lord. I had not had enough drinks that night to give me the courage I needed. But I got up and I told him, I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, you may not be aware that Elvis Presley, he started his career in Memphis. He lived in Memphis. He died in Memphis. But when he went away as a great advocate for our military, he joined the Army and was stationed in Germany for 2 or 3 years. And when he came back to America on a military boat, landed in the port of New York, and a young Charles Kuralt with CBS Radio stuck a microphone in his face and said, "Mr. Presley, what did you miss most about Memphis while you were gone serving the armed forces in Germany?" He said, "Mr. Kuralt, what I missed most about Memphis, I missed everything." And I said, if you people don't buy this team, you will miss everything about the great city of Memphis. There's a reason that Danny Thomas put St. Jude there. There's a reason that FedEx is there. They could have been any other city in the world. And we ended up selling the team for $35,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, go in a little more detail about what the things that they were going to be seeing and doing. And you said, you're not going to be drinking some.
Oh, now we got to be careful with that because about 30 years ago, we honored some, some of the great, like Sam and Dave and some of the other Stax artists that might not have reached the prominence of, Al Green or Isaac Hayes or somebody like that. We named some streets up and down, little side streets off of Beale Street. What was it? Early morning, and I'm there as chairman of the city council, and I'm reading these proclamations, knowing that there's no press there. Okay? Wrong. And I'm sure none are listening today.
Not today.
Nobody, as they say on Howard Stern all the time, nobody's listening to this. But anyway, I said something like, you can drive drunk as a rat down Poplar Avenue after we named the street after you. Nothing will happen. Well, the next day, the Commercial Appeal had a headline that the Mothers Against Drunk Driving did not exactly approve of, okay? So I might not want to repeat what I said in California, but
you lived it down once.
It helped raise that $35,000 for the benefit of the children at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Also told him, I said, you're going to come to my house. We're going to go in the wine cellar. We're going to drink the best wine. You pick out what you want to drink. And I also got in some trouble. I pointed out they had a bottle of Josh Cab on the table. I said, you won't be drinking any of that bug juice like that Josh there. Rick Shadiak looked at me like he wanted to kill me. I think Josh might have been a sponsor that night, perhaps. But I'm known for maybe occasionally putting my foot in my mouth, Earl.
Well, but you also do it in a way that's highly entertaining.
Well,
if you're going to do it, pull it off.
I like to have contagious enthusiasm, and that's the way I feel about my town. It hurts my feelings when people tell me they're going to move to, move to Dallas or Austin or some other city, and I'm like, hey, stay here and let's build on
Let's
it.
win this thing.
Yeah, let's win this thing.
That's the way I look at it. Yeah. When you travel to other places, as I do, I say I'm from Memphis, everybody in Memphis thinks that's all they're talking about is crime or whatever they think is being put out over here.
Sure.
The people I talked to said, how do you like Memphis? I said, man, I love Memphis. I moved here in 1978.
Right.
And I have met everybody. The only person I didn't meet was Elvis because he died in August. I got here in January.
Right.
But I met everybody else. I mean, you mentioned Al Green.
Sure.
They're all part of the community.
Right.
And if you run into them, they don't say, I'm not talking to the fans today. They go, hey, how you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what I love.
They sit down with you.
Yeah.
I'm walking through this clothing store here at Lansky's. Hal Lansky's done a terrific job of decorating it with a lot of Memphis history. I'll be a number at my next birthday that begins with a 7. So I've seen a lot of this. And but when I was a kid, my family was in the jukebox business. So the portal of entry to promote your music back in the 50s and 60s was to get your records on the jukebox. And they would come, and my mother was French. She was a great chef and cook, and we'd go to early mass on Sundays. And then on Sunday at 1 o'clock or something, she'd put out a big spread. And all these fellows that were trying to get their records on jukeboxes and occasionally needed to borrow some cash from my father. I think he ran the bank of East Memphis, so to speak, for the musicians. And I knew these guys like they were my uncles. Yeah. I didn't have, as a young kid, I had no comprehension of the impact that they would have on American culture and American music, international music for that matter. So Elvis was one of those guys. Elvis first showed up at my dad's office on a Friday morning. Fridays was the day that the route men would go out and change 3 records on each jukebox. And they'd count the money, and they'd split it with the establishment. And then at the end of the day, they'd bring back the money, and they'd get to go home. But it was a full day's work. So this young fella comes in, but you have to program the records. You're not going to put Rory Acuff in an inner city tavern. And conversely, you wouldn't put that kind of urban music back in the 50s in a country joint with a parking lot full of pickup trucks and rifle racks and things like that on it. So anyway, they're programming the records, and all the route men are like, come on, man, we're ready to go. Give me my book. I want to go. So this fella comes in with a box of 45s, not this big, and he was bashful. His hair was a little greasy, and he asked my dad, he stuttered a bit, and he asked my father if he'd put some of his records on the jukebox. And my dad he was a colonel in World War II and had a rather colorful use of the English language. And he told him to put the so-and-so records down, and he'd get back to him. So, sure enough, Al Gore had not invented the answering machine or internet yet. So we had a full-time switchboard operator that would take service calls if machines broke down. Well, the jukeboxes were made by a company in Chicago called the J.P. Seberg Company. They made just fine equipment, never broke down. And the next morning they had 50 service calls. Well, coincidentally, a box of 45s came with 50 records. So they went to these joints, and you had these Seberg jukeboxes with the dome glass. Yeah. And they played vertically. Seberg put Wurlitzer out of business because Wurlitzer played 10 records one side. Seberg came with 100 record two sides. So you played, if you worked in a restaurant or bar, you had to listen to the same 10 songs all day. You
drove you nuts.
Jump out the window. Yeah. So they come with, after the war, they came with a 200 selection jukebox and just revolutionized the business. But when the fellows went out there, they saw a record standing up with the needle had worn all the way through it.
Because they played Elvis' songs?
It so many times.
Wow.
And so they came back and they threw the records on my dad's desk, and they just kept coming and coming and coming. And after about the 30th or 40th record, he's like, what's the deal here, boys? And they said, well, that record, they played it so many times.
More there.
There was a thing on a jukebox called a popularity meter, and every time it played, it would advance. And he had spun the wheel. And one day, it played over 50 times. So my dad looked at it, and he said, yep, who was that kid? Where'd this guy come from? They said, that's the guy that you cussed out yesterday and told him to leave. And my dad said, I knew he was going to be a hit the minute I saw him. So Johnny Navarese and Joe Coogie owned Poplar Tunes at 308 Poplar Avenue, and they were good friends of ours. And so my dad found out that Elvis lived at Lauderdale Courts over there.
Yeah, downtown.
So he called Joe Coogie. He said, Joe, you ever heard of a boy named Elvis? He said, yeah, he's in here all the time. At that time, they were the only record shop in town that would let you listen to the record with headphones prior to buying the album. So Elvis was in there every day with the headphones on, listening to different types of music. And Joe Coogie said, yeah, the boy's in here all the time. My dad said, well, I got a case of Jack Daniels with your name on it, son. You find him, you bring him to me. And he brought him to him, and we developed our family had a great relationship with him. But when I was about 3 years old, I know this because the story's been told 100. I don't remember anything else when I was 3 years old. But he took me to Curtis Drugstore at Summer and Perkins, what's now Walgreens there. And they had a full service soda fountain. And he set me on top of a stool. My little feet wouldn't hit the floor, and got me a triple scoop ice cream cone, which doggone thing looked like a 4-story building to me at the time. And but the lady behind the desk, she dialed her sister, who dialed her friend, who dialed a friend. And in 10 minutes, there were 60 girls there pulling on Elvis. They wanted to touch him, kiss him, talk to him. And a couple of them, you couldn't. There were 60 people. Not everybody can get to the man. So they look at me, and I'm in my Sunday outfit. We just been to church, and they start pawing on me. I look at them like, "Get away from me, lady! I'm not sharing this ice cream with anybody." So we got home. My mother was, about every 30 minutes she'd count kids to see if she had them all, and she's missing the baby. So when I walked in, I had ice cream all over my church outfit, and my mother, she's on her knees praying the rosary, praying to St. Jude that I'll, be found. And she sees me. She starts crying, "Where have you been?" I pointed behind me. I said, "Elvis took me to get ice cream." And she cussed him out in French. Last time I ever saw him.
Really?
Last time I ever saw him.
Well, you want to get cussed out again.
Yeah, he didn't want to get cussed out again. But 20 years later, I was going to school in Alabama. I came home for the summer. And a lady in the front sent me a call, said some fellow wants to buy a pinball machine. So I got this, world headquarters. So the guy on the phone, I'm like, "Hello." He said, "Yeah, I want to buy a pinball machine." I said, "What?" He said, "I want to buy a pinball machine." I said, "Well, you've come to world headquarters, sir. We are authorized distributor for all 5 major manufacturers, Bally, Williams, Chicago, Coin, Stern, and Gottlieb. We can help you. What you want?" He said, "Doesn't really matter. But can you bring it to me right now?" I'm like, "Dude, you don't even know. I haven't told you the price." And they made a 1-player, a 2-player, and a 4-player machine, and each one of them was more. The 4-player was the most expensive. And I said, "You need to be careful. Some dishonest pinball salesman might cheat you out of $50. I'll never forget what he said. He goes, "You impressed me as a very honest fellow." He said, "Why don't you just pick one of them out? But more importantly, can you bring it to me right now?" I'm like, "Boy, this guy's he wants to have his way." So I reckon we can. Where would you like it delivered? So we take it out. He says, "Just bring it on out here to Graceland, baby." And that boom, it hit me between the eyes. I realized who it was. I'm like, "Yes, sir, we're on our way." I run in the warehouse, and I told Robert Earl, God bless him, I said, "Robert, let's put your lunch down, son. You're going with me. We're going to put," I said, "uncrate that machine." It was a Bally knockout. "Uncrate it. You and I are going to take it to Elvis." He said, "Well, I want to eat my lunch first." I said, "No, we'll go to lunch afterwards." We go out there, and the security guard was at the gate waving us in like we were an ambulance. And the man's in a hurry for his pinball. We go up to the front. The Memphis Mafia come out. We've got a Tommy lift on the back where the machine, they just literally picked it up. Weighs about 400 pounds. And his father came up, burning with a giant cigar in his mouth. He said, "You boys got a ticket on that thing?" I said, "Yes, sir." I handed him an envelope with a window in it. He disappears. We go in, set it up next to the grand piano to the right in the living room, get it all clean, get the glass clean, got it level, it's playing great. And he came out with what my dad used to call a Memphis knot, K-N-O-T. That's a wad, $100 bill.
Memphis knot.
Now, you got to remember now, in 1975, when this happened, the minimum wage, Gerald Ford was the new president, I think the minimum wage was $1.75 an hour. So you'd work a long time to make $100. He pulls out that wad, that knot. He gives me a $100 bill, and he gives Robert Earl a $100 bill. Robert Earl looked at it like he was counterfeit. He's like, ain't been no Franklin president. Ain't no President Franklin. So anyway, I'm holding on to it with a death grip, and I look at Mr. Presley in the eye. I said, Mr. Presley, sir, we are an authorized Valley distributor. I'm not allowed to accept this gratuity. And I took this long, pregnant pause, what seemed like an hour, probably 10 seconds. I said, until I have given a full demonstration of this machine, if you'll ask your son to come in here, I'd be happy to show him how to play this pinball machine. And he looked me up and down like he was undressing me. He said, son, I'm going to tell you something. I'll never forget this. He said, my boy, he ain't going to win no spelling bees, but he sure the hell knows how to play a pinball machine. So he said, you and this other fella, get the heck out of Graceland. He kicked us out of Graceland. And that machine's still there. It's in the racquetball room.
Wow.
Yep, still there.
That's why they had the office. Elvis didn't allow any business to go on inside the house. And I've talked to people that said that if he bought something like Pat Patterson used to sell him Pontiacs. Not everybody got a Cadillac.
Right.
But he would go outside and Bernard would write the check out on the hood of a car outside. He said, because we don't do business in the house. I mean, they were very strict about that. And they'd also do it in the office in the back.
Right.
But an amazing guy, and he loved Memphis.
Oh, he did. You know, when they bought that home on Audubon Drive, it didn't take long before the fans started just, bumper to bumper out front. And young Fred Smith and his mom and my father-in-law were living there. And
they were living in the house on Audubon?
They lived 2 doors down from him. Okay?
Wow.
Yeah, played football in the front yard with him, that kind of thing. Anyway, the group of neighbors got together. They went and visited the Presleys and said, look, we love having you. Y'all are very nice people, but this traffic congestion is just intolerable. And y'all paid $12,000 for your house. We've put together a group, and we're going to offer you $20,000 to move. And legend has it that Elvis asked the question of, well, how many neighbors are in this deal? And like, well, there's 24 of us, put 500 apiece. He said, well, I got a better idea. How about I just buy all 24 of y'all? Yeah, and that's kind of the way he thought. I mean, that's the way his mind was that way. He thought big. And when I was in high school, I guess or I was in college when Elvis passed away, and I don't think the people of the city really understood the worldwide impact that young man had until he was gone. Yeah, and still does. And still does. So you're talking about being in California. I went to California recently to visit my brother Scotty, and we played golf one day. I had to tell you hello, by the way. But anyhow, he asked me if I wanted. We're going to the golf course. He said, "You want to get a donut?" I said, "Look, man, I'm Don DeWeese is my buddy. I can't cheat on him." I said, "But maybe in California, but my fat self doesn't need to be eating any donuts." What the heck? So he said they get $5 for him out there
for a donut.
For a donut.
Wow.
I said, "Look, I don't care about eating a donut, but I want to go introduce myself to the people that would pay $5 for a donut, because I might be able to sell them. I'll sell them something else, or maybe I'll make a sponsor out of them for the golf tournament." So we go to this place, and there's a line outside like they're giving away flat screen TVs. I couldn't believe it. It's 7:30 in the morning on Saturday. So we're standing there, and I got my FedEx St. Jude Championship shirt on, and my selective pay hat from my buddy Bogey that's got this company in Memphis. And the lady comes in behind us, an attractive young lady, and she looks at both of us. She said, "Do you work at St. Jude?" I said, "Well, no, ma'am, I don't work there, but I raise money for them." And she pulled out her phone, and she showed me a picture of her 18-year-old son, and told me how he got cancer, and that he's 18, and that the doctor said they probably won't take him. But his only chance to live is if you can get him to Memphis and you can get him into St. Jude. And people in California, some say, "Oh, don't go to Memphis, they'll steal your car." And she said, "I don't give a damn about my car. I'm trying to keep my son alive." So sure enough, they were able to get him in, and they saved the boy's life. And she started telling the story and how she started crying. I started crying. I bought every son of a gun in that line. I just went up to the front counter. I said, just everybody in line gets free donuts on me. And it was a great day. But I went back to the golf tournament and spoke to the volunteers. And I said, no matter what your job is here, because some people have jobs that they never see a golfer, never see a ball hit. They might be, doing will call 4 blocks away or something. And I said, never think for a minute that what you do to help this tournament, to help St. Jude, does not have an impact for some kid somewhere. And that young man in California exactly was a classic example. I had dinner one night in Atlanta at a joint steakhouse called Hal's Steakhouse. And the tables are just right on top of each other. And I sat down, ordered a drink, and next table right next to me plops Jerry Jones and his son and some lady, and I'm sure she worked for him, and somebody else. And I said something like, well, greetings from Memphis, Mr. Jones. And he said, Memphis? Oh, man, I love Memphis. He said, Justine's my all-time favorite restaurant. He started talking about the Peabody and he had the enthusiasm he had for Memphis was just unreal. And he picked up our table and moved it, with him. And we just had a ball just, talking all night. And he wouldn't let me pay for dinner, just really a sweetheart of a guy. But anyhow, I told him that night, I said, look, Dallas has got the Cowboys. Memphis would not trade St. Jude for the Dallas Cowboys. I said that, y'all are the America's team, but we've got America's heart here in Memphis at St. Jude. And it's a privilege for me to be involved in raising money for them. We've raised, we're getting close to $100 million that we've raised, and the beat goes on. So we just got to tell the story.
Well, and to that end, I've got a story about your father-in-law, Fred Smith.
Yeah.
When we were trying to get it.
My uncle-in-law, my wife's uncle, yes. Uh-huh.
Just say you're related to him. That's all you need to say.
Okay, sure.
I'm tight with Fred.
There you go. Okay.
But,
he'll take my call. There you go.
I was part of the team that was going to Chicago, and my job was to run the slide projector, and there was Ron Terry, Fred Smith, Paul Tudor Jones.
I was in the room with him at the Grand Hyatt O'Hare.
I was there.
When they told us that Charlotte had got a team and they were going to delay the decision for the second team for 6 weeks or something like that.
So they still gave us hope, right?
Well, I tell you, Fred looked me in the eye. He said, let's get out of here. I mean, he knew right then we were not going to be blessed with that.
In fact, because Fred came back from some meeting, or maybe it was Billy Donovan. He comes back in and says, we're not going to get a team. I said, how do you know? He said, because they said, this is the price tag. And I said, I'm not paying that much. And I think that's when Fred said, we might as well get out of here because we ain't getting
Well, there's a lot of different stories, but one was that we were going to have a Central Time Zone team and then have an Eastern Time Zone team. And it's really a shame because a lot of good people really worked their hearts out.
They did.
I think maybe this bay we're sitting in at one time was the NFL Memphis headquarters. It was like Pepper Rogers' office.
Yeah. Well,
John Malmo was very involved in all that back in the day.
I was at Walker and Associates, and we were involved with it. And Pepper and I said, we get out. This is one of the trips we're flying back from, and we're on a FedEx plane. We land, and they bring Fred's always gets a Ford Bronco, not a Bronco.
Back then
Explorer.
Yeah, right.
And they had that new twist handle, this way for the window, this way for the door. So Pepper and I would get Fred's bag, walk out the back of his car, and Fred comes in and goes, what are y'all waiting for? I said, well, we're looking at this newfangled door handle. He said, hell, if you can't open the back of our car, we ain't never getting a football team. And he was right.
Yeah, right. Pepper was one of the most colorful guys that ever came through. But, Memphis has had scores and scores of great, great characters, and he's certainly in the
and they
Hall
flourish here because people love people that are flamboyant and interesting. And
that's right.
I think it attracts them. I think it makes people come down here to Lansky's because you never know who's going to be in here.
Yeah. I mean, Shelby Foote, when he lived in Memphis, You could knock on his door.
Yeah.
He'd invite you in. He'd talk to you for 4 hours about the Civil War. That guy was, what a great hero he was.
Of course, he was with Ken Burns' the Civil War series. He was in that. He was the star of that.
Absolutely.
And because he talked just the way they talked during the Civil War.
Yeah.
I mean, he had such a great accent.
Boy,
I have friends that say, if you'll go by his house at cocktail hour, he'll sit and drink scotch with you. And I said,
sure.
I would love to. I kick myself every day. I never did that.
My granddad had Pappy's Lobster Shack. He used to come in there all the time because he lived on Parkway. And he'd come in there all the time when I was a kid working there. And you're right. He had that syrupy voice that was extraordinary.
And then reading the letters from those people, it was an incredible documentary. Somebody I do want to get your impression of is Elon Musk and what he's doing here. I mean, I think it's absolutely incredible. I think he's probably the most inventive person since, Marconi or Magellan.
Yeah.
I mean, and the fact that there's so many people who are giving him so much grief over everything, I guess that goes with the territory. That when
you're the richest man in the world and have just.
Have you gotten to meet him yet?
I've not met him. I understand that he likes to go to Felicia's when he's in town. So,
also, McEwen's
and Carlisle's place there, Amelia Jean's.
Yeah,
one of his other favorite places.
Well, I think he really likes Memphis.
I do too. And listen, I just think we need to absolutely embrace the gentleman's interest in our community. This artificial intelligence, I've been to a number of, listened to some really smart people talk about it. And one of the consistent messages is, if you're looking at it, the metaphor of it being a education, AI today is like the second grade. There's a whole lot more to come behind it. And the fact that they picked Memphis is just, particularly, it's no secret. Your listening audience knows this has been, the last few years have been a lot to swallow here. We're dealing with the crime and, the post-pandemic and that kind of thing. It's been a challenge. But here comes a fella that invests, he buys $9 billion, that new type of dollar, as Jed Clampett talks about, that billion.
A billion.
Yeah, back then it was a million, but now it's a billion. And, Tennessee doesn't have an income tax, but we have personality tax. And he has to pay taxes on his assets that he keeps inside that facility. He didn't ask for a
credit
tax abatement. He didn't ask for any grants. And, I know some people are not happy with, his demeanor and all that. Listen, I'm looking way past all that. I want to shake his hand, thank him, and what can we do to further expand it. And I think what you're going to see is other related businesses come here. Just today, this afternoon's Business Journal, they announced that an outfit from Canada called Hypertech is investing $500 million in the old Fred's Dollar Store headquarters on Getwell out there.
Know exactly where it is.
Yeah. Now, if anybody thought that building had a future, you've got to be quite a salesman to sell that thing.
Yeah.
But actually, a few weeks ago, I had a friend of mine that's the mechanical contractor for the job, and Josh Walker, and he called me and told me about it and said it's the biggest job he may ever have in his career. You know? So these kinds of things could really change the trajectory of Memphis. You think about what Holiday Inn did for Memphis in the late 50s, early 60s. When I was a kid, you go to a birthday party and half the people there are wearing Holiday Inn shirts, And the last 25 years, it's been FedEx.
Yep.
Who knows where it could be with these guys?
Look at the warehouses that are in Memphis today.
Oh, you fly over the city and just
that's all it is.
Block after block.
Go down to DeSoto County now, and that's all there is.
Right.
And it's because FedEx came here, and Fred believed in this, and look what it's done. And if people think that FedEx is going through a tough time, just wait. They figured it out. They always do. I remember after
absolutely.
Zap, you thought they counted him out then. I said,
nah. No. Shannon Brown, my buddy, he was there 44 years at FedEx. He said, you don't meet a guy like Fred, but once every 100 years, And Elon Musk may be the next 100-year man that's come to Memphis. And, I just encourage everybody in town to be open-minded and embrace them and encourage them to.
Hey, they welcomed me here.
Hey.
I didn't have anything going for me.
Well, the jury's still out on that. You didn't have that pretty brunette with you. We might have another story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had asked me to leave.
Yes, sir. You don't have to leave, but you can't stay here.
So I guess the bottom line is, Jack Sammons, you're a believer in Memphis, and
Absolutely.
you believe in the future of Memphis. I think that's as important as believing in what's going on now.
I think that one of the scarce commodities that this world is going to experience the next 50, 100 years is water. And we're blessed to be sitting on top of one of the largest artesian wells in the world. Certainly we got to protect it. And, Mr. Musk is saying, all right, I'm going to build this gray water. I mean, they already started on it.
Yep.
And I'm grateful for that. But there will be towns like Vegas and Phoenix and some others, Los Angeles, that are going to be struggling for water. And that's a luxury that, we've got to market it. We got to tell our story. Our Memphis Light, Gas, and Water is the largest public utility owned by a municipality in America. And, there was when I was on the council one time, Earl, there was a movement to sell it.
When Willie was mayor.
When Willie was mayor. And they said at the time it was probably worth $5 billion. And that'd be, an unbelievable shot in the arm of cash. But we passed an ordinance that said you couldn't sell it without a public referendum. So it belongs to the public.
Yeah.
So they have to come forward, and that didn't make, Mr. Harrington or Dr. Harrington, some of the other folks.
They'd have just spent it, Jack.
That was my point the whole time. We would have had a lot of stuff we didn't need.
Yes.
Okay.
And there have been some people that were retiring to Europe that.
There might be some G5s and some yachts that were bought during that. So the folks that, we've had some challenges in management there, but Doug is an outstanding gentleman. He worked with me when I was at the city, when I was CAO, and he's a terrific choice to be the head guy at MLGW, and I feel good about it.
I've been very impressed with him.
He's a solid guy. And
he doesn't shirk answering questions. He tells you exactly what's going on.
He's direct. He doesn't shirk responsibility.
No.
He doesn't point at somebody else's fault. When things go wrong, he'll look you in the eye and say, yeah, we screwed up there. We're going to do better next time. Great choice. And such an important job.
Yeah.
We got a great guy at the airport now. Terry Blue is the CEO.
You're also on
I've been on the airport authority for quite a while. And Mike Keeney's our chairman now. Was chairman a decade or so ago. And just announced yesterday we've got direct service coming from Delta to JFK. We're already going to LaGuardia there. Since Delta moved their hub, we've been able to just sort of incrementally put the puzzle back together. Fares are much cheaper than they were. Got a new airline coming online this week called Breeze, Breeze. They've got direct flights to Tampa and Raleigh-Durham, two markets that were unserved.
Well, a lot has been done there, and it's recently been redone. The whole terminal has. If you get those damn escalators working, people movers. What's the deal with those?
Elevators, moving sidewalks. They are a mechanical nightmare. There's an article in the Wall Street Journal last week that said a lot of airports are taking them out
because you can't ever get them fixed.
Well, the vendors don't want you flying by on a moving sidewalk. They want you to stop in and buy something. And,
it's like putting a freeway around the town.
Yeah, that doesn't help it. That doesn't help it at all. But good things are happening at the airport. We're going to have a long construction project. Right now, that old building was built in 1963, is not earthquake proof. And
so if you're there and an earthquake happens, run for the door.
Yes, get out from under those champagne glasses. That would not be good. So that'll all be retrofitted. They're going to extend the building north towards Winchester, so you won't have everybody crammed in there when they're in lines. They're going to double the size of the security lanes, so it's going to be a much better we call it a memorable, positively
Experience.
memorable experience at the airport.
Well, I know the next big project for you is the golf tournament coming up. And
second week in August, 6th through the 10th. We wait till it cools off.
Is Rory coming?
Oh, yeah, he'll be here.
Because
I played in the Pro-Am with him last year.
Did you beat him?
Oh, well, I'll tell you this. His play began to turn around after that.
Yeah.
The prior year, we had Xander Schauffele on our Pro-Am team, and his game improved. So now there are all these players calling me wanting to get on our team, but we'll see.
Well, Ron Olson said when you get Jack on there, ask him if I can play in the Pro-Am, because he said nobody ever advised me to play in that. I said, Ron, you have to pay to play. He goes, nobody ever told me that.
A mere $25,000, and he will be on just about any team he wants to play.
We'll even name a street after you.
Shoot, yeah, we will. We'll get Jim Nance to do a shout out for Ron.
There, just $25,000.
25. He sell one of his guitars and get that.
Well, or just keep them coming.
Keep them coming. Ron is one of the great Memphis guys of all time. I'll never forget 1978 when the police and fire went on strike. A buddy of mine invited me to go to Horseshoe Lake to spend the night because Memphis was under curfew. And he was flying in. I went to the airport to pick him up, and it was right 5 minutes to 6, just before Ron was signing off. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, it's tough times in Memphis. Policemen are on strike, firemen on strike. Rumors that they're going to burn the town down. He said, FM 100. What are we doing? We're bringing in the heavies. He said, just moments ago, Don Myers, our general manager at FM 100 WMC 79 at 1960 Union, has picked up none other than Henry Kissinger at the airport, bringing him to City Hall. We're going to settle this strike tonight. And then he kind of fades into this song. He says, FM 100, bringing in the heavies just for you. And they ended his show. I said, man, that guy's a pro. That guy's a
It's amazing you remembered that exactly.
I remember that exactly. The other Ron story, I think he got suspended for a week, and part of it was my fault, perhaps. He'd call me up, invite me occasionally to come in, and we do some kind of spoof on the air. And he said something about the Motley Crue. There'd been an article in the paper that some of them were illiterate. They couldn't actually read and write. They could play the heck out of guitar, but they couldn't read and write. And I got on the station with a show with him, and I said that when I was leaving there, I was going to the main library at Peabody McLean, and I would be joined by the Motley Crue band, and that they had donated some $8 million to the Memphis Public Library System, and we were going to dedicate the break ground this morning for the Motley Crue Reading Room. And about an hour later, there were 200 kids standing out in front of the library that had never been in the library before. And I think they suspended Ron for a week or something like that. So Ron probably blames me for it, but it was his idea.
He moved a lot of people on his. Yeah. They were collecting all $20 bills because they wanted to collect because they were counterfeit, and the Secret Service came to visit him on that one.
He was with K97 for a while.
Yes, he was when I first got here.
Right.
And then he ended up doing that Thursday night thing at Fridays at the little disc jockey booth.
Sure.
And
at midnight, drinks were half price.
And confetti dropped and everything.
Sure.
And that's when I met him when I first moved here.
Fridays had a fellow that played football at Arkansas who was from the American Samoa. Big as his table.
Yeah, he was. His name was like Fred or something.
I think he's originally. He lived in America. He lived in Arkansas, I believe. But I
literally
saw him throw a guy through a window one night.
Yeah, that was his usual operating method.
Yeah,
he didn't take him to the door and kick him out. He threw him through that Friday's open window.
Right. Well, I would work, at night at the Lobster Shack, and I'd go over there at 11:30 or something after we closed. I'm sitting at the bar one night, and two guys on either side of me, big boys, get in a fist fight. They're exchanging blows. I'm just trying to hold my head down. And this bouncer jumped in between them and put his finger on his chin like, Go ahead, hit me. No,
you get one shot.
They backed up. No, we're good. We're good. Those were great times at Overton Square back in those days.
Wyatt Chandler used to hang out there.
Oh, yeah. That lady was on the radio. Help, help. The mayor needs help. Yeah, it wasn't his wife. That was a mere coincidence, right?
Another friend.
No, that's a colorful character if there was. And Mayor Chandler could quote Shakespeare, but he could also hang out at the place on Madison and some other joints.
Remember when he went to New Orleans and the New Orleans Police Department called the police department here saying, we got a guy down here that claims he's mayor of Memphis. He said, does he talk like this?
Yeah.
I'm Wyatt Chandler.
He was on Saturday Night Live one time.
I didn't know that.
Yes, sir. It was during the strike.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because Nelda, what's her name? Rosanna Dana came here and reported on her vacation from Memphis.
How about
the old downtown fire department? They had a half track parked out there, and she's doing a stand up. Going, they got tanks here in Memphis.
He used to have this Rick Dees on his WMPS program down the street. He had literally down this street.
Yeah.
He would play this tape over and over where Wyatt Chandler recorded.
Mr. Dees.
Yes, sir, Mr. Dees. And whatever you could say, Mr. Mayor, are you going to let Earl Farrell move to Memphis? Yes, sir, Mr. Dees. Yeah.
That was the best bit.
Character.
And he played that for years.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
Yep. And so Mike Petrangelo, a great friend of mine, was president of Sharing Plow. Plow owned a chain of radio stations across America. WMPS was one of them. K97 was part of that group. And Rick Dees was their number one DJ. I mean, he was hot as a pistol. But he had this new song out called Disco Duck. Well, the FCC regulations prohibit a desk jockey from playing their own music.
Yeah.
So Mike had to go downtown to the studio, went in there and said, Rick, hey, man, we love you. We're proud to have you. But, son, we can't risk losing all of our licenses across the country because you're playing your own record. I said, look, you just can't do that. Yes, sir, I understand. The next morning, Mike's on his way to work, and he's got his radio on, and he hears Rick playing. He drove right over there and fired him. And Rick ended up in Los Angeles, 7-figure contract before it's over with. Might have been the best thing that ever happened to him.
You know, the guy that wrote it with him I've had him on my show before, and he said he's made more money off Disco Duck than all the other songs he played in studio.
No kidding.
They're just, he said, a phenomenal thing. And Rick's still doing top 10 nationwide.
Wow. Yeah. So my buddy Bill Rhodes, who is just retired as CEO of AutoZone, he was the vice chairman of our board at the golf tournament for 15 years. But he just joined the board of the PGA Tour. They have another name for it, but in essence, that's what it is. He and Tiger Woods and some other big shots. And so we had a dinner the other night at Folks Folly in Bill's honor. Great guy, great Memphian. And David Porter is on our board. And Bill asked David a question. And, we had about 20 people there. And David started talking about his career in music in Memphis. And I promise you could have heard a pin drop for an hour and a half. He just nonstop telling great stories about, his history in it. And he said that I asked him the question, who the greatest musician he ever interacted with. And he said, without question, that would be Otis Redding. And, but he said, songwriting is just about, it's the public they understand if it's genuine or it's artificial. It's all about putting emotion on paper. And he said, that's why Dolly Parton may be the greatest songwriter ever. She just, when you hear that word Jolene, talking about that woman that was trying to hook up with her husband, And,
well, it's authentic.
Yeah, authentic.
Yeah.
And he talked for an hour and a half, and he's 82 or 83 years old, in great shape. Yeah. He really is just what a great guy he is.
Talked to him last week about coming on the show, and he said, I remember when I met you, Earl. He said, Thomas Boggs opened up Louis and down there on Poplar Avenue.
That's right, the old Dairy Queen.
Old Dairy Queen.
Yeah.
He said, didn't make it, but Thomas did. And I said, well, you were one of the most famous people I'd ever met at that point.
Sure.
And just the nicest guy in the world. His famous story is the one where they're doing Sam and Dave or Hold On, Hold On, I'm Coming.
Right.
I couldn't think of a hook phrase. Yeah. And they go get him. He's in the bathroom there at Stack's. And he says, come on. He goes, I'm coming. Hold on.
I'm coming. Yeah. Well, unbelievable.
So that's where the real inspiration often comes is in the bathroom. So
he told all kinds of stories about Stack's and the early days, and what a tragic deal that thing blew up. But Staley Cates and some other folks put that thing back together and created the Stack's.
And look what Boo Mitchell's doing at Royal.
Yeah.
So things are happening.
They are.
Jack, thank you so much for coming to spend some time with us.
You bet, buddy. I enjoyed it, and it's been a real privilege to be in the great hallowed halls of Lansky's.
Well, everybody looks better in Lansky's because...
So, ironically, the company I'm president of, Ampro, was founded by Mr. Bernard Lansky's brother,
Hal
Irvin.
Told me that when we were on the show last week.
The Lansky's roots in this town are deep.
Yeah.
Bernard's daughter, Nisi, is married to Ron Bell's, whose family, they own this hotel. Yeah. And they've just been great supporters and contributors to this town. But Bernard was one of Nick Burgess's favorite people. He just loved to listen to him talk, and he'd make Nick and I laugh. The last time I saw him, he said, hey, Jack. He had that deep, hey, Jack, what's going on, man? Slap me some skin. Like that. Instead of give me 5, slap me some skin. And Nick would say, yeah, Mr. Bernard thinks it's still 1970. Yeah.
He was, I did
Sweetheart.
a video biography for his family.
Oh, really?
Because they wanted Bernard to tell the story.
Sure.
Because in his own way, the skin. And
nobody better to tell it.
And he had all these pat little sayings like, keep wearing the tag, man. You put that Lansky tag on. Don't take it off, man. That means you are somebody. And plus you're advertising for me.
Right.
But he was, just could tell story after story. And Nick could impersonate him exactly.
Oh,
Nick was a great impersonator.
Yeah, I want to mention, too, one of Nick's great friends, a great Memphian that just passed away 2 weeks ago, Ron Wong.
Yes, I was at his services.
Just the ultimate volunteer for this city, did so many great things for Le Bonheur and St. Jude and many, many other charities. It breaks my heart because I love Ron, and he just...
And he loved
servant leader. Oh, man.
He volunteered for everything.
He was at FedEx for 40 years. Yeah. He said he ran the parts department when he first got there, and they'd only let him buy 12 screws at a time. They were
that tight.
Times were that tight. Yeah, Ron. Nick Burgess said if they had a rainstorm on Walnut Grove and they had a pothole to fill with water, in an hour, Ron would pull a 6-pound bass out of it. He was a great fisherman of all time.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Earl, thank you for the invite.
Thank you. Thank
Enjoy
you.
it, buddy. God bless.
We'll do it again. Sorry. That is it for our show today, ladies and gentlemen. You'll be able to see it on Facebook for about a month, but it'll be on YouTube probably tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.